Hello again. Thank you everybody for tuning in. This is the third installment of Crunch Time Crossover. This is episode 3, and I am your host, Isaac, once again. To a little bit about the episode today, I'll just be going over just a lot of the preseason coverage that's happened so far, just a lot of the rookie debuts, just warming up to the season. But before I get into that, I'm definitely going to start this off like I start the rest of the podcast with my affirmations that I have. So the first affirmation on the board today is I am in the process of positive change right now. I, myself, but not just for me, I hope everybody listening, I hope you are in the process of going and making good changes in your life. I hope you're actively making good changes in your life. And I think if you continue to do that overall, you will have a good life. So again, I'm in the process of positive changes. Another one for today. I am in control of how I feel. And today I choose to be happy. Plain and simple. You know, I think it really blows my mind at how much I can control and dictate my thoughts and my feelings sometimes. And sometimes it's not as easy as just saying I'm in a good mood, but sometimes it is. You know, sometimes it's just a matter of really changing your mindset for the day and not choosing happiness just one day, but choosing it every day as best as you can. And if you are having a hard time doing that, you know, maybe making choices that help contribute to that are just as important. So, you know, it's a good day today and I chose to be happy today. The next one is I am enough. What I'm doing is enough. What I'm working on is enough. It's enough for me and it's enough for my goals and my aspirations and my inspirations. And, you know, whoever's listening, you're enough. The work you've put in is enough. If you're struggling with that feeling, you know, there are so many things you can do to potentially change that for you. But yeah, you know, you are enough and you should go to sleep remembering that and you should wake up remembering that as well. Another one is I am thankful for what I have. Just bottom line, I think it's so easy to realize what's bothering you and what you don't have and what you're missing, when in reality, there's a lot to be thankful for. And I mean, it's all around you every day. You know, you can just look around and see what you're thankful for. So if you're wherever you're at, you know, look around and just realize what you're thankful for. You know, if you have people around you that matter to you, be thankful for them. You know, if you're in a home that you feel comfortable in, that's important. Be thankful for that. I retweeted something on Twitter maybe a day or so from RG3, Robert Griffin III, and his tweet was, count your blessings so you can see how your problems are outnumbered. And, you know, I think that's something that I'm going to kind of take away with every day, is just realizing that no matter what I'm going through, it's easy to count what's bothering me, but if you count what's not bothering you and what's making things better, it's always outnumbered. You'll never have more bad than you'll have good. And if you think you have more bad than you have good, pay attention to what you're counting. You know, pay attention to what you're putting energy into and what you're putting effort into, because I think it'll really change your thoughts and your opinions on things. And I find that to be not only really helpful, but just really important for me and just for my personal mindset that I'm in. So yeah, so I'm thankful for what I have. Be thankful for what you have. And my last one, and this might be a little bit of a longer one because it kind of goes with a little bit of a story, but I am proud of myself for getting this far today. You know, I'm still here. You know, sometimes there are days where it doesn't feel like that's doable and that's hard, but you know, I still wake up every day and make choices every day, and I'm proud of myself, you know, and you should be proud of yourself. This year has been one for the books for sure. So if you're still here, you should be proud. You know, I have a little thought process that I kind of go hand in hand with this. I've worked at the hotel that I've been at for a little over a year and a half now, and I'm blessed with my hotel property because every week we get installments of the Santa Barbara Independent, you know, and it's local news for my area, and I love the city that I'm in, you know, so I take the time to read the Independent here and then, pretty frequently, actually, now that I think about it, more often than not. But I do this thing that I've recently just started telling a couple of people, And I didn't know if I was going to share it, but I'm just going to kind of share it anyways, just because it's really interesting. But I think it's more of a thought-provoking kind of action. But every time I get the Independent, I scroll through all the news, see what's going on with city council and whatever. But I always read all of the obituaries on the Independent. I read all of the obituaries. And I've done this for over a year and a half now, actually, since I've been working at the hotel, pretty much close to 2 years now. But there's something about reading about somebody's life that you had no part in, no play in, no say in. And I'd never met the person. I don't have a chance to now, realistically. But, you know, you get a good sense of understanding of people when you read about other people's lives, you know, because you can live a life so differently. There's so many ways to live a good life. And I think what I leave with every time I read these obituaries is near the end of them, the common theme is so-and-so is missed by name 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and grandkids 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and had kids 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know, I think that just goes to show that you're important to somebody, and it doesn't matter if you know them or not. There are people on this planet that are important to other people. And just to put things in perspective, you know, there have been 300,000 people that are no longer here with us that started the year. And I think it's kind of hard to associate people's lives with numbers that big, because you can't, I mean, I don't know how long it would take me to count to 300,000, but I know that's a long time. So when you realize that, you know, these people that aren't here with us anymore are like brothers and sisters, you know, and parents and grandparents, it's a different kind of thought when you make it human, you know? So I just think, again, if you made it here, you should be proud of that. If you have people around you that are here, you should be proud of them, because it's been a hard year for everybody, you know? But those were just what was on my mind today for my affirmations. Again, things that I know, things that you should know, and things that you should continue to remember. If you heard it from me, you should tell somebody else today. I'm sure they could use it. You should tell someone maybe you're not interested in telling you, you know, maybe hear something or learn something that can go a long way. You know, I think we don't realize that. The words we use really mean a lot to other people, and you should be mindful of them. You know, you should be mindful of what you say to people, and you should respect and keep that narrative going, you know, because I think ultimately that's the kind of world that we should live in, and that's the kind of world that I think we should continue to strive for. So yeah, so those are the affirmations for the day. Like I said, if you heard them from me, please pass them on to somebody else to get those feeling good. You know, I'm feeling much better talking about them, you know, shared a little story with you guys. I hope you guys take that for the value of what you heard, you know, maybe read an obituary or something, get to know someone you think you may have never known. It's just really interesting thought for me. But switching gears to talk about basketball, this preseason so far has been pretty interesting. I've been really enjoying some of the gameplay that I've seen. And it's been nice to see a lot of faces that haven't been on the court for a while make their debut. Has been really good. A couple of the big name players that everyone's been interested in. Definitely one that I spoke about on the last podcast, but Lamela Ball had his preseason debut against the Toronto Raptors. Not the most impressive debut. Didn't score any points. Had an impressive 10 rebounds, which was really good. He had 4 of the flashier assists of the preseason already, so that's definitely something to comment on. LaMelo did look pretty comfortable in that team, though. Again, not a lot of offensive scoring from him. I'm sure that's going to change as the season progresses, but he was looking pretty good in my opinion. I think he's got really good vision. So hopefully if Charlotte can capitalize on the talent that they have, he might end up being one of at least a top 10 point guard in the next coming years for sure, especially at his build for the guard position is really nice. And again, just playing Toronto, one of the tougher teams in the league. Nobody's really playing right now. I know a lot of the superstars that are playing are just trying to get out there for runs. So when season starts in the next couple of days, things are just definitely going to pick up. Another rookie that had his debut, Obi Toppin for New York, the 8th pick of the draft. They played the Pistons against Killian Hayes, who was another pick in the draft as well. Obi had 11 points with 7 assists and a good 20 minutes of gameplay, which is not too bad. And then their last pick of last season, RJ Barrett, had a pretty good game as well. put up 15 points and 5 rebounds in close to 30 minutes. They're going to be a pretty young team. I read a report saying that the Knicks don't have anybody over 30. So that's a young core overall. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep talent that young together for so long. It kind of sounds like it's following a little bit of a narrative that the Pelicans have with having Zion and Lonzo and Brandon Ingram, just young talent, and the idea of building on them and seeing if they can turn into something impressive in the near future. So New York might be all right. Again, I didn't project them to be really bad this year. I don't think they'll be running in the playoffs, but I think where they're at in the position, they're going to have a lot of players showcase a lot of talent. So it'll be nice to see them. And then on the other side of that, on Detroit, not a lot of impressive gameplay really from anyone on Detroit. They're going to have an interesting season. One of the biggest news out of Detroit, though, is them signing and then waiving Lamela Ball with no playing time, it sounded like. I don't think he logged any NBA minutes, which is, I was surprised, definitely got a little giggle out of that. I think he'll get re-signed. I don't see him staying a free agent for super long. I don't know what team is kind of looking for that kind of style play Lamela has, because he kind of wants the ball in his hands a lot, but he's more of a scoring kind of player. But I don't think he's going to go unsigned for very long. Honestly, I see him going to a team. Him signing to Detroit made sense in my opinion, because that's a team that kind of lacked shooting, and he kind of fills that role a little bit. So I can definitely see him going to a team if any team is looking to stretch the floor a little bit and get some good offensive shooting from him. But again, definitely all three of the Ball brothers was short-lived in the NBA, unfortunately. So we'll see if that can get back in there. But yeah, that's just for the New York and the Pistons game. In my opinion, have never met a bad Isaac. I don't think I've ever been introduced to an Isaac that's not been a friendly face or a stand-up guy. And that draft pick, Isaac Okoro, 5th pick, has been played some pretty good basketball so far out in Cleveland. Opening night, 18 points, is a good debut. He shot 2 for 4 from 3, which is 50%, which is hard to do in NBA standards by anybody's standard realistically. And not only did he have that good game, but he had the game-winning defensive stop on defense against TJ McConnell. And then in that same transition, scored that game-winning bucket to seal the deal, which is a hell of a way to start a NBA career. Although it is preseason, those minutes mean a lot, and especially with Cleveland probably not winning as much games as they should win, I think, because they do have not a bad team on paper. Some young talent in Colin Sexton and Darius Garland that they got in the draft. I forgot that they picked up Andre Drummond, which is not a bad big man off of Detroit. So they have Andre Drummond and Kevin Love, some pretty sizable big men. But if they don't do well, like I assume they won't, that means just a lot of playing time for these younger players, which is always good from a organizational standpoint, because if they develop well enough, you have talent, and if they develop well enough, you have trade leverage. So as long as they do well, it's good for the organization. Talking about the first pick in the draft, Anthony Edwards, they played the Memphis Grizzlies for opening night. They lost by 2. Edwards had a very not impressive performance, only putting up 5 points and 4 rebounds in almost 30 minutes of play. Not an impressive stat line, but I think the Timberwolves are going to have a lot of bumps in the road coming up. D'Angelo, Russell, and Cat only combined for a little under 30 points, around 27. D'Lo had 14 points, and Towns had 13 points and 8 rebounds in close to 25 minutes. So definitely not the minutes that they'll be getting during the regular season. But like I said, a lot of these superstars are probably just playing just to get some runs in, to get familiar. On the other side of that game, the rookie of the year in Memphis was Ja Morant, put up 20 points, had 11 assists and 4 rebounds. As preseason, not that preseason shouldn't be taken seriously, but there's definitely players that are going to be really playing in preseason to try to prove a point. And I think with where the Grizzlies were last season, almost making playoffs in the bubble, I'm sure Ja has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I think he's going to continue to impress us. I was thinking if he continues the tear that he was on last year and the numbers go up, he could definitely be in conversation for most improved as well. just at his guard position. He's just a phenomenal guard. And as long as he stays healthy on that Memphis team, they got some young talent. I definitely think they're going to do okay. One of the other games, and again, I had mentioned, I promise that I don't think this is a Lakers podcast, but there's some conversation coming out of LA for sure. The Lakers and the Clippers have been matching up for their preseason. The Lakers actually took both of those games. The first game they played, they won 87-81. THT, my man, Talon Horton-Tucker, the second-year pick for the Lakers in 2019, putting up a good 19 points and 9 rebounds in 37 minutes. That's some pretty good usage out of a guard in the second round. They also had Montrez and Dennis Schroeder have their Laker debut as well. Trez putting up a good double-double in 30 minutes, 13 points and 12 rebounds, and then Schroeder putting up 10 points and 4 assists in 24. Like I said, for preseason, by the time season starts, these players are already going to be in a really good rhythm. I don't know how much realistic playing time Talon is going to be getting on that Lakers team, but it's proven that he can score at a high level. And in that second game that they played, the Lakers won as well, 131-106. Talon dropped 33 points with 10 rebounds. That's an impressive game for a second-year rook who just recently turned 20 years old. So he can score with the best of them. And I think all that does for LA is when you see someone so young play so well, I think it just kind of ups the intensity for everybody. I know LeBron was probably loving the gameplay, and I'm sure when regular season comes around, if he can continue to make the shots that he was making, that LA team is looking good from top to bottom, from their bench, from that starting lineup, for their rotations. They're going to be, I'm definitely looking forward to watching them play. For that second game, Montrez put up 19 points and 11 rebounds. He's just going to continue to dominate. I believe I heard that the Lakers are potentially looking to sign another center or a big man to try to take the load off of Anthony Davis from playing such a big power forward position, even though Gasol's there. So it'll be interesting to see if the Lakers can pull together maybe not a stretch four, but some form of big man that'll definitely, I don't think they're looking for scoring realistically. I think they're just looking for a better defensive presence, just because Trez can kind of score the ball pretty well. And I mean, when you have Anthony Davis, that's a guaranteed 25, 30 points a game for sure. Another matchup that's got a lot of conversation buzzing is the Houston Rockets. I had mentioned last podcast about how there's a chance that Houston team might be pretty all right with John Wall, James Harden, and DeMarcus Cousins. But per the reports that are coming out, it seems like James Harden is uninterested in playing with John Wall, which is quite the surprise to me, in my opinion. I don't know what the reason would be off the top of my head. I find it interesting that not to say that I saw it coming, but I think there was huge implications from the beginning of the season that he already wasn't showing up to their team practices, was kind of away, and they had already talked about a trade kind of early on before we're kind of in the middle of the free agency. With the trade destinations, forgive me, that Harden has expressed interest into going to either the Nets or the 76ers. I know both of those teams have expressed that they're not willing to part with the players that I'm assuming Houston is looking for. I know they inquired with the Nets about acquiring Kyrie Irving, which isn't going to happen. And then on the Philadelphia side, I think they had probably reached out about potentially getting either Simmons or Joel Embiid, which also isn't going to happen. So it seems like Harden's just kind of in a little bit of a pickle. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, if he doesn't want to play, he doesn't want to play. But I just don't know why you would assume, or why you would just not want to play with someone like John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, who clearly have something to prove, that are on a team that could potentially go, all the way if they put some pretty good pieces together. John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins looked pretty good in their preseason debut as well. It was nice seeing them get on the court after them not being able to play for a couple seasons. So that's always good that they're getting into the groove, but still just it's a currently happening story in Houston right now, and they definitely have a problem. So we'll see how that ends up playing out over the next couple days. I would be surprised if he got moved, but I think Houston might just be asking for too much, and I don't know where they're going to get what they're asking for. So we may have Harden in Houston for a little bit, or he may be on the move. I'm definitely curious to see what happens with that. The Wizards played the Nets, which was one of the more interesting debuts, I want to say, because you had Kyrie Irving and KD both getting to suit up on the same floor. They combined for 33 points. Kyrie had 18 points. He shot 7 for 9, which is pretty good, and 4 assists, and KD had a solid 15 points off of 5 of 8 shooting. By the time Christmas comes around, KD's probably going to be close to averaging almost 30 a game, I assume. And Kyrie Irving's probably going to be anywhere to like 20 to 25. So they'll be in a good rhythm. That Nets team made a lot of noise without them on the court anyway. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with Kyrie and KD on the floor. They're pretty comfortable on their bench too. I forget. They got Landry Shamet, which is a good trade from the Clippers. And then they do have Spencer Dinwiddie as well, who put up 10 points, 7 assists and 6 rebounds. Some good guard play I think you always need. When you have someone like Kyrie Irving, who's your star point guard, you definitely need reserves to back him up, just because not that he doesn't log a lot of minutes, but he benefits from rest here and there, especially in games that matter. So I think as long as Dinwiddie and Shamet keep together, that Nets team is going to be pretty good. Again, that Eastern Conference, not that it's always weak, but I think there's going to be more of a mix-up this year just because there's a lot of more talent going around on the East. So looking forward to it. Again, I have the Nets as my favorite in the Eastern Conference coming out on top. So definitely excited to see them. And again, KD is one of the best basketball players potentially on the planet, so definitely excited that he's back on the floor. When both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are playing, basketball is a better sport. So definitely good that they're around. The Washington game had a lot of upside as well. The Wizards played I'm trying to remember who they played right now. I want to say they played, give me 1 second. Well, anyways, regardless of who they played, Westbrook and Bradley Beal weren't on the court. Their 9th pick, Denny Avdija, put up 16 points on a good 6 for 6 shooting. He shot 3 for 3 from 3-point.
Nets.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Oh, yeah. That's who Washington played. They played the Nets. Yeah, so Denny was on the other side of that ball. So Denny with their 9th pick, pretty efficient game from the European player. He's shown that he is good on both sides of the ball. He's a good playmaker. He can score when he has the ball, and he can make good decisions. I forget that their other 9th pick of last year's draft, Rory Hachimura, had a good game as well, putting up 18 points and 4 rebounds. They're going to be a good those two at the 3 position are going to be a good rotation. And like I had mentioned with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, I definitely think that they're going to be a playoff team. I am curious to see how that offense is going to run. I have thoughts of potentially Denny maybe not being the focal point of that offense, but having them run the offense a lot through him, with still Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal getting a lot of touches. I think that they're going to probably run a lot of offense through him. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, I would like to see them make the playoffs, and I definitely think they have playoff contention with Russell Westbrook, just because Bradley Beal can't get over that hump, or hasn't been able to get over that hump since John Wall went down. So Westbrook's definitely going to help bring that around. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were in playoffs when Wall went down with his injury a couple years back. So it'll be nice to see them back in that kind of playoff conversation. But yeah, a lot of upside from that 9th pick. Again, they have 2 9th-round picks back-to-back years. So hopefully they can continue to get a good rhythm with Scott Brooks at head coach, already having I would assume, a fairly good relationship with Russell Westbrook. They might be able to put something together that's pretty impressive in the Eastern Conference. And then to close it off, just wanted to talk about Milwaukee and Dallas a little bit. I would say minus the gameplay that's happened, Giannis had a good game, 25 points and 10 rebounds, but still no contract extension, which I want to say has been the most compelling conversation for this offseason. I heard for Giannis's birthday, they sent him pens about wanting to sign contracts. That's a message from your players and your organization. They're kind of waiting on him. So it'll be interesting. I don't know. With him being a free agent, the thing is he can potentially end up anywhere if the money is right and the conversation goes right. So that's still very interesting. I know that picked up Drew Holiday, which is a good addition to your bench. And I know they signed Bobby Portis as well, too, which kind of makes up for a little bit of depth. But I don't know what that team is without Giannis. Chris Middleton's a good 2-guard, but I don't see that team performing all too well without Giannis on the court. So if he decides to leave in Milwaukee, it's just a matter of where the MVP is going to play next. If he stays in the East, I'm sure it'll be a pretty good walk to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't see him moving to the West just because the West is just a gauntlet. Like, there's just too many good teams that are in the West. And I think it would prove more of a challenge, and maybe he would be up for the challenge. But as far as winning that so coveted championship ring, I don't think he'll do it as easily as he thinks he'll do it in the Western Conference. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him stay in the East if he does decide to leave Milwaukee. It's just a matter of where in Milwaukee he's going to go. I know that there was talks kind of early on near the end of the bubble about him potentially ending up in Miami. And if Miami somehow is able to sign Giannis after that finals, man, that Miami team is going to be a nightmare, especially with Jimmy Butler being the kind of player he is. And if Miami doesn't have to lose any key pieces that helped bring them, I think the only loss that they've had was Dennis Jones Jr., I want to say, from the slam dunk contest contestant that played for Miami, who signed with Portland. So same team for the most part. So if Giannis decides to make his way to Miami, that Miami team is going to be really good. I thought that Miami's Lakers was a great finals matchup, in my opinion. But I know, like I said, I promise this is not a Lakers podcast, but I know I'm going to see LA in the finals again. Like, I know they're going to be in that conversation for going back to back. And I definitely think that they have the team to do it now. I mean, they definitely had the team to do it last year, and this year they got infinitely better. But it seems like these teams that were competing have all gone a lot better as well. So I'm just looking forward to a lot of really good basketball. I know there were games on today, so we'll probably cover some of those next week. But that was the episode for today. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. To close it out, again, like I had mentioned, life is beautiful, you guys. You're enough. Life is good. Tell people you love them. Respect everybody around you. Respect yourself. Ultimately, you should respect everybody, but you should have the utmost respect for yourself, and you should treat everybody with that as well. But again, my name is Isaac. Thank you guys for listening. Any questions, comments, please hit me up. I would love to hear about them. But thank you for listening. Peace.